Cursed, a television show based off of a book, based off of a legend. This is, in effect, a retelling, if you can call it that, of the King Arthurian legend involving the Lady of the Lake, Nimue, Arthur, Uther Pendragon. See Lancelot, Percival, Gawain in there, Merlin, Excalibur, etc., etc. So this took a major twist that really diverged from the King Arthurian legend, and the result is nothing short of a disaster. This is riddled with historical inaccuracies, doesn't really hold true to anything that you know of King Arthur and his legend. There's lots of problems with it. The writing is terrible. The acting is equally bad, and the CGI will look like real CGI. There's like really only two instances where the CGI even looks remotely good. One was for a deer, and then the other one was, essentially for the spell castings and whatnot. So I'll go more in detail in the characters, more specifically Arthur. Depending on what you may have been exposed to in regards to King Arthur, you may have heard different things. He was just a legend, no historical reference of him at all, or he was in fact a historical king that took place. So whether or not he was either a great king filled with nobility or a warlord, which is suggested in the preface for a book I read called Celtic Legend Mythologies, where he was a British warlord. In Cursed, he is nothing short of ordinary. He's very bland. He's a scoundrel. It's almost like they wanted to do away with the whole King Arthur thing and said, let's make him as detestable as possible and let's not put any real substance to him. Arthur, in this case, he's not even a Pendragon. He's just a sellsword. He's just a mercenary. That's all he is. Yeah, he's trying to make a name for himself, fails at it miserably. There's just really not a whole lot of character development for him. Lancelot, you don't know who he is until literally the last 5 minutes of the series. You legitimately do not know what he is. He's an unnamed character. And it's only through the eyes of Percival, which, you only get his real name within the last couple of episodes. And even then, it's passing where, you just things like, oh, it's just there. We finally have to give him his name. Gawain, again, same thing. He was probably the only the second best actor in the entire show. Merlin, this was actually the only character development and character choice and casting choice that actually sit well. He is, can't remember his name, is Gustav, but he played Floki in the Vikings, and he played this part really well. The problem is this show is filled with mediocrity at every single turn, and actors can only do so much. Even the veteran ones like this one. He's essentially a drunk. He lost his powers. He's essentially a druid. That part doesn't really deviate too much from the story. Nimue, bad actress. She honestly needs to undergo some serious acting classes because nothing seems organic. And then I'm going to talk about some of the dialogue and the social things I've noticed and had a problem with in just a minute. Cursed has their audience set for young adult, which of course you're going to have a young adult protagonist, typically normally a woman. Hunger Games, Divergent. It's typically the mold and the formula that they use for young adult fiction. It doesn't mean that a man can't do it. It's just more typically the more popular choice is to have a woman. Again, which is probably why they made the choice that they did to have the Nimue be the wielder and inheritor of Excalibur. But with that being said, with young adults, sometimes especially if something's not done well, Characters can be very two-dimensional, even sometimes one-dimensional, as it really seems to be in this case. There doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of agency, and the dialogue that I do have an issue with. More so the first episode, some of the first couple of scenes where Nimue is talking with her friend. They're basically having conversation, and this conversation seems like a conversation that you'd expect two girls to be having at a lunch table in middle school. That's what it sounds like. I mean, obviously, I wasn't in England in 500 AD or 600 AD, roughly during the time that King Arthur would have been around. But it just doesn't suit well. Yeah, sure, they try to put in the accents there, but yeah, it doesn't make for the poor choice in the words of the dialogue that were chosen. It doesn't really make sense. And with that being said, with the whole young adult thing, typically being a woman, and with fantasy fiction, there can be ways to go around it where you can still have the protagonist wield the sword and still be a woman in King Arthurian tale. I'm just going to mention this in passing because this is what you would expect. This right here is a King Arthur as a woman that was actually done very well in the Fate series. And this is an anime series. Really doesn't have anything to do about King Arthur. King Arthur is just a character in the series, but she's a woman who wields Excalibur and is very respected, and they did it in a way that actually logically made sense. This did not make any sense whatsoever. Didn't say anything close to King Arthurian tale. What they should have done instead was write a similar story. Okay, use different characters. Okay, use different characters, rename the sword, rename the wizard, market it as a young adult movie. Don't market it as a King Arthurian legend because it's not. It fails, and it would have been better if it didn't have all those Arthurian characters in it. Why would it have been better? Well, because we already go in with an expectation, and we have this expectation, and the expectation was terrible. And I went in with low expectations, and I didn't think I needed to lower my expectations any lower. So personally, I recommend skipping this one. You'll see a bunch of reviews, and you'll definitely see that reviews are inflated, just due to insiders voting up the show that they worked on. But you'll definitely see those ratings drop as I'm putting my review up. A solid 1 out of 10. I wish I could give it 0. As a solid 1 out of 10. And another booktuber who also does something similar than I do, he gives it a little bit more grief than I do. And Daniel Green, check him out on YouTube. He's also a great resource for authors and readers. And he gave it a 2.5. It's a little bit higher than mine. But he also only watched the first episode, and I tormented myself watching 10 hours of this thing, wishing I had it. I recommend skipping it. It's not really worth it. I did not read the book. I didn't realize it was a book until after I finished it. Looked it up. I'll put a link of it in the description if you want to check it out. I do not intend on picking up the book anytime soon. Because my reading of that will be biased. So I already have low expectations, which means I'm going to have exceedingly low expectation for the book. So with that being said, the acting will make you cry. The characters will make you laugh. No, they won't. They will not make you laugh. And you will wish you skipped this one. You most definitely will. Most reviewers I've actually heard have actually stopped watching after the 4th episode. All right, so that has been your review and rant review. This is not exactly spoiler filled, but there are some spoilers in there. They're very light, if any. Um, so if you want to watch it, go ahead. I just recommend you skip this one. Again, this is terrible. No, you know what? I take that back. This is beyond terrible. There isn't even a word for this.